What's up, people? I'm Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 10 of my reviewing and ranking King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard studio albums. Started with 1, going through 10. I'm going to talk about this one, which, as you can see from below, is Murder of the Universe. And then I'm going to rank it according to my personal tastes. I don't have a rubric. It's just what my gut tells me, what my ears and my brain and my heart tell me, where I'd rank this among the other 9 I've already talked about. Murder of the Universe, their 10th, came out in 2017. The second of 5 in 2017. And this is, I read somewhere or saw an interview with Stu McKenzie, sort of the front man, the lead guy, that guy that's always out in front, that this was their silliest and ugliest album to date. And I kind of don't disagree with that. And those aren't bad things. Those are good things. It is ugly in that this music is pretty aggressive. It's pretty raw. It's aggressive, thrash, psych, King Gizzard, full-on attack, krautrock, distortion, just go at it type thing, with some variation every so often. But for the most part, it's like a full frontal King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard psych rock attack. Also ugly, especially in the third of the 3 suites that are on this album, and that the topics, the lyrics, the context, the story, especially in the third part, which we'll talk about in a while, intentionally ugly. Like, they meant it to be ugly. They were going for ugly. And then silly in that the ugly is kind of silly at times. The narration is kind of silly at times. Yeah, it's an absolutely awesome King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album. It once again sort of proves the awesomeness of this band. It's about regular length of an album. It is, so it's about 50 minutes long, I think, maybe a little shorter than that, maybe about 45, 46. But it's 3 suites of music, and there's a narrator in all 3 of them. And other than that, the music is your typical aggressive stuff. Some really good, like, noir, sort of krautrock type stuff in some of it. N-U-E, apostrophe, exclamation point, noir, right? Noir. Some of that as we go on through the album. Some really good hardcore psych attacks, layers of noise. Your typical sort of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, just oral, just chaos at times. But there are 3 suites, and each suite is its own, like, self-contained story. The first one, it's about 20 minutes long. The second 2 are each about 13, 14 minutes long. And the first time I listened to this, I was like, I love this music. I love everything about this music. I even like the songs when, like, Mackenzie's singing or the band is singing. I just wish the narration wasn't there. There are times where, like, the musical grooves or what's going on musically is so fantastic. I'm like, I don't want the narration. That was the first time I listened to it. After 3 or 4 more times, I was like, you know what? I really, really, really like this album, but I wish the narrator didn't change from the awesome female voice that does the 2 first suites, about the first 2/3 of the album. Her name is, apparently she's a famous musician in Australia. I was not familiar with her prior to this. Leah Senior, I think she's maybe a classical musician or a jazz musician, but she's a famous Australian musician. So Leah Senior does the narration. And after about the 3rd or 4th listen, I was like, you know what? I really like Leah Senior's voice. Like, I'm not one who pays attention to the lyrics until I'm really getting into something 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6, maybe 8 or 9 times, because the music to me is the driving force of whether or not I enjoy an album. But after a while, I was really getting into the lyrics, and I was really getting into her voice, and there were times when I was paying attention. Other times I'm like, I just think her voice is pleasant. It's like another instrument, but it's like amidst the chaotic psych storm of the music, her voice really was like almost this dove just kind of flying through the storm, and like, wow, look at this dove go, it's making it. So that was pretty cool. But then for the third part, they switched to this like a talking into like a computer that alters your voice into like a robot voice, like your stereotypical like robotic voice. I am a robot. I'm not doing the right accent, but that very just staccato, stilted, cut off those last syllables, those last sounds type. I am a robot. I am here. That kind of thing. And I was like, man, I just wish she had been there for the whole thing. And the last part, I was like, I don't want that narration. And then when you know what the narration is about in the last one, it kind of doubles down on that. But then after about the 8th or 9th time, and I was actually paying attention to the lyrics, they get to the third part, and in the opening track of the third part, Welcome to an Altered Future, when they're setting up sort of the final story, the narration voice, that male robotic voice, says something like, welcome to an altered reality. And it's like, oh, it makes sense. It can't be the female voice because we're now in an altered reality. And even though that story doesn't necessarily connect to the first two stories, nonetheless, we're in an altered reality. I'm like, yeah, this band's got it going on. Like, they think of those little things. And to me, that single line at the end of that song was like, oh, I'm all in. I've bought it. I can now enjoy this male robotic voice. Absolutely fantastic. 3 suites. First suite is where the song Altered Beast comes from, which I think they've played live, right? A lot. I know they played Murder of the Universe, the title track, the last track, a number of times. I think Altered Beast gets played. Yeah, it's essentially, it sets up with this awesome sort of heavy building eruption type opening that is very much like the beginning of something grand. You get the narration coming in. It's kind of some really grand space prog psych rock. And then the next 7 tracks are Alter Beast 1, Alter Me 1, Alter Beast 2, Alter Me 2. And there's 2 different grooves that they kind of play around with, but they drop into each other's groove and they're back and forth. And the narration is like, there's a human and there's this altered beast, which I think is like halfway of a man and halfway bear, and the 2 are eventually like merging and becoming one. And at the end of the story, like they can't figure out what they have to do, and I think they have to eat people or something, and the thing finally dies in the final track, which is Life Breath. But it is 20 minutes of almost straight pedal to the metal, just attack. And every time we get to an altered beast, I want to say it happens for every single altered beast, something different happens musically. Alter Beast 1 is kind of the template for all the Alter Beasts. Alter Beast 2, all of a sudden we're getting like a lot more chaos. The vocals now have they're messing around with them production-wise. Things are just getting stranger. Alter Beast 3, about halfway through, we get this other just brand new groove that just drops. It's really cool. Almost like a Doom psych groove. We're starting to get a little Doom action. Alter Beast 4, we get more weird stuff. There's a moment of like actual breathing in space, and then things just get weirder after that. And Alter Beast 4 starts to feel a little schizophrenic musically and a little bit all over the place. And then for the final Life Death, we kind of get a different groove, a really cool sort of a keyboard vibe that's floating around in there. And then the main character dies. Exhilarating. Just, you can't catch your breath for the entire 20-minute run. It is just absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Suite number 2, the tale of the Ultra Beast was Suite 1. Suite number 2 is the Lord of Lightning versus Balrog. Whole different vibe, whole different groove. Each of the songs seems a little more self-contained and a little more of like a grander statement and more of a self-contained prog song and not a, part of this long-running epic. Some weird stuff in here. You get a lot more keyboard presence in the second suite. Again, it's psych weird keyboard, but it definitely provides a whole different vibe for that. It's not as driven and not as sort of pedal to the metal, just go, 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 as the first suite. You have some context, which is this really brief, like 20-second little intro that drops you right into the reticent raconteur. The female is still narrating this part. You get the Lord of Lightning, much more dramatic storytelling. Lord of Lightning We get a nonagon infinity drops back in there, and that keeps recurring over and over and over in this song. We keep going back to the nonagon infinity, that part, throughout the entire track. So we're referencing back to a previous album. The Balrog itself gets even more crazy psych, a really cool keyboard intro, Floating Fire. We get this nice sort of like dun 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 dun, pounding, building, almost like tribal type drum energy that's sort of like just building up things before we go back into chaos. And then you get the Acrid Corpse, which is this awesome funky space psych groove to close out the 14-minute Suite 2. Definitely a little more dynamic as far as like the music, more keyboard presence, but fantastic. And then Suite 3, Han to Yumi, and the Murder of the Universe. So this is about you get that weird electronic male voice. It is about a cyborg who wants to do two things that humans do that he cannot do. He wants to vomit, which is possibly why this is the ugliest and silliest thing King Gizzard has ever done. And he wants to die. Those are his two goals in life. So you get the Welcome to the Altered Future, which is we're introducing that new voice. You get Digital Black, which is some heavy psych noise. And then we drop into your kind of more standard King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard groove. Lots of cool like kind of riffs thrown into the grooves to kind of break it up, like these little pockets of guitar come in and kind of just provide a little more than just this continuous attack as like this first suite does. Han to Yumi, the Confused Cyborg, we get this awesome noir groove. The bass playing, especially on the last couple tracks, is just sublime on this, like really like driving these songs in a really fantastic way. But it's just because of that noir kind of energy that's kind of there and just propelling us forward. This is when he explains how he wants to vomit. Then Soy Protein, we get like a spacier, psychier, slightly calmer groove for about 30 seconds before that takes us into Vomit Coffin, which is jarring, kind of staccato. It's got these nice melodic guitar lines that kind of drop in midway through that are pretty cool. Kind of your typical King Gizzard, like spirally, proggy lines. Some more great bass, more keyboards just kind of laying all over there. And this is where Vomit Coffin and Murder of the Universe, he's just describing like how he's going to vomit and all this stuff. And the Murder of the Universe, the last song, more great bass, more great keys. This is the one where he murders the universe because he does vomit, and all this vomit sort of, I think, coagulates and like forms this like substance that I think suffocates the universe because it covers the entire universe, and thus the murder of the universe. It is a silly album. Like those are silly stories, especially that last one. The first one's maybe a little more philosophical and deep with that human and robot kind of combining, or beast, man, bear, beast, man, bear. If there was a pig involved, oh man, bear, pig, just kind of combined. But yeah, it's an exhilarating album. And the first couple times I listened to it, I was like, man, like I said before, it took me a while to get to it. And once I accepted the narration and I just recognized that the narration was a necessary part of this album, I just grew to love it more and more every time I listened to it. And the music is just exhilaratingly fantastic. It is ugly, it is aggressive, it is layered with psych noise, but it is fantastic. But yeah, I really, really like this album. And at this point, 10 albums in, ranking these albums is stupid because they've yet to have anything that is obviously not good. Like there's no album like, oh yeah, that's obviously the last one. Here's my list right there. There it is. The ones at the bottom are their early ones. 12 Bar Bruise, Eyes Like the Sky, their first two. They're still kind of sort of getting their feet under them. They're still kind of working up that sweat before they become who they are. And then everything else is fantastic. Paper Mache is just a little bit breezier and a little bit easier. Quarters is fantastic and more jazzier. Oddments is fantastic. These are all absolutely incredible albums. But I would drop Murder of the Universe right at 4. Almost put it at 3, but the opening tracks, To Float Along, The Head on Pale, that's so good. And it's such a fantastic way to start off an album that It's right there. Nonagon Infinity. And I May Mind Fuzz, I think, is just perfect from start to finish. All of these are. I mean, I would say everything. Yeah, I mean, this band is ridiculous. But I would put this at 4. I really, really enjoy it. It is silly. It is ugly. But I'm a hardcore Zappa fan. And how much of Zappa's music is both silly and ugly at the same time, which is what makes it perfect. That's what makes this perfect. Like these are all S tiers. Like A pluses to S tier albums. This band is killing it, people. Killing it. But yeah, Murder of the Universe, I'd drop it at 4. All right, that's what I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this album, your thoughts on the story, anything you know about this that I don't know about this. But yeah, what a fantastic band. And check it out for some silly ugliness or some ugly silliness, whichever way you want to use those words. That's all I got. Subscribe, share, like, comment. Comment, even if you don't care about this review, comment and let me know that you don't care. Because amazingly enough, that helps out in some weird way. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Peace. Talk to you later.